Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another class of the London session on TopstepTV. My name is Deeyana Angelo, aka Marcus Dee. I've been trading for about 18 years now, 13 years out of that. I've been trading futures, and I am a Series 3 qualified trader. I specialize in some of the more alternative products that you don't really see all that much. Basically, I like to focus on platinum and copper for the London session. Away from Topstep and in my private account, I do like to focus on DAX, which is basically the main session. London is the main session for DAX. But today I noticed something happening in crude oil that actually started happening last night. So usually crude oil tends to be reasonably quiet after settlement. And yet, yesterday we had we actually had a gamma wall around 66, which was somewhere around here. Now, that gamma wall was very reactive into the end of day spike reversal, however you want to call it. And then it sort of kept trickling away from it, right? That tends to mean that there are some people who are deciding that this is not a bad area to get involved on the long side, because that's, the late spike idea. Now, if I go up to the weekly chart all the way, just to show you where we're coming from, we have this whole situation where we're at the bottom of the range, and last week we actually went deeper into that range at 65, 25. One thing you will notice with crude oil, quarters, halves, and evens tend to be the prices where large players will typically get involved around. And if you can identify, like let's say you see a demand area somewhere around 66.35, right? Well, 35 is a bit of an odd number in crude oil, so it's more likely that they're going to go all the way down to 25 and even evens before they actually do what they want to do. So it can sort of provide a little bit of a zoomed in thing. Now, me and crude oil have been on sort of trial separation recently. However, OVX, which is the volatility of crude oil, index of how crude oil volatility is doing, it did manage to climb back up to almost the levels that I would like to see it, which is over 35. Now, over the last sort of week or so, we did have crude oil sort of flirting with that level. So if I look at the OVX, it did pop, like, for example, Wednesday, 5th of March, it actually went all the way up to 45. Now, that would be excellent, if we can kind of hold that. Unfortunately, we've come off that now, and we're sort of just under that 35 OVX cutoff point. We're kind of sitting around 31, 32. However, that should still provide at least about, 180 ticks per day of the range. You can typically connect the volatility index with the type of the range that you can expect. That is another thing that I really started tracking last year when crude oil kind of started going a little bit meh. So basically we might be in a situation where crude oil has kind of stabilized between 30 and sort of 45 VIX. So as long as we can hold those levels, it might be that crude oil is more tradable than it was last year. But again, I will revisit this every couple of months to see whether that is the case or not. Until then, I'm going to be focusing on other things as well, and crude oil is not going to be necessarily my focus, even though it has been my main product for a long, long time. However, that's been eclipsed by DAX in recent times. David Castillo, hold on, what's happening here? Somebody's having whole conversations. Let's see. David Castillo says, when I see this stream come on, I know it means I've stayed up far too late. Oh man, I've been there before, because I used to be a night owl, like through and through, and I always had like sort of musician jobs, so that meant that you just don't sleep at night. That seems to have changed in the recent years, but I'm still not like, I wouldn't say that I'm, you know, that I'm a morning person, because it's still, you know, you can see that I'm not that functional in the morning. Like, I sort of put my face together and everything, but I'm like, bleh. It takes me like 2-3 coffees and some nicotine before I actually start to function. And also, you know, it's one of the reasons why I tend to trade the London session a little bit later. However, the main reason really there is that the swings that I'm after typically on most days will not appear like straight out of the bat from London Open. And that could be true with crude oil. Somebody's saying crude oil is really depressed and wants you back. Listen, crude oil is a very expensive thing for me last year, so we're gonna have to have words first, crude oil. But yeah, we'll see whether this works. I have a very wide stop of 65 ticks, which is kind of like a million ticks in crude oil these days. It should account for, you know, at least half of the amount of the daily range that we have at the moment. So, you know, it should be wide enough to absorb any sort of whipsaws, as long as Trump doesn't say something that will put the shorts back on the table. Technically, you know, in the weekly chart, we are at an area where it looks like some people have already stepped in. There's a big buying wick. Now, as I start to go through the daily chart, on the daily chart, we have been battling the same zone, so it's a bit messy. This is why I would say this is more of an accumulation than a consolidation. I actually, in my methodology, I like to separate those two because they have slightly different entry points and slightly different ideas of how things should play out. But effectively, once you see something that hasn't moved out of the area for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's a 6th day that we're spending in this range. So, you know, if I was to put on my Dolby hat and just go, well, this is one big range, where should we get involved? Down here. But, you know, that already happened. And to be honest, with the way things were looking like that, I was like, ew, not sure I want to touch this right now. However, we consolidated for 6 days. Is this phase 1 into phase 2? This could be a swing opportunity from all sorts of areas that we're looking at. Now, one caveat here is that crude oil, my Cavalier has decided that he's gonna, what are you doing? Just settle. That he's gonna scratch and make his own bed in the corner. So that's what you may be hearing. But yeah, we have potential crude rollover starting. Let me just see what is going on. So that could kind of put a wrench in the works. And it's not that you can't have trending days on rollover days. You can, but it just has to be a little bit trickier. Yeah, so we've already started to sort of roll into May. So you can see we've had 20,000 contracts traded in April, but then already 11,000 of that is being traded in May. So that means they're already using that forward month to start trading. Now, what's happened with open interest? Let's have a look. I mean, it lost a whole bunch of contracts, minus 18,000, minus 19,000 almost. But again, that could be the effect of rollover as well. It doesn't mean, oh yeah, they're definitely, you know, shorting this thing and bailing. It could mean that they're just closing out this contract and then basically rolling into the next one. So around the rollover times, open interest tends to be a bit muddy when you're using it as any kind of an indicator. So yeah, I'm still going to stick to technicals. If this thing doesn't really gain any traction, you know, halfway through the day, so be it. But from a technical standpoint and from everything that I'm seeing at the moment, there's a pretty decent chance. Now, first step here would be for the London session to actually take this above initial balance. Initial balance high at the moment is sitting at 66.76. So if we go higher than that and we hold above that, so not just kind of popping and reversing, but we would need to actually hold above this entire structure in order for the swing to kind of gain some legs. Obviously, as that's happening, I like to see the volume growing in the same direction. Now, even though I'm not some kind of a volume reader whiz, I do... people kind of take it the wrong way. I said, I don't use volume much. And then some people took that as, oh, I don't use volume at all. It's like much and at all are two like very, very different things. So I do use volume in the way that if I'm looking for something to happen like a, sustained auction, for example, yes, of course, I need volume to do that. It's like, what are we talking about, right? So yeah. Do you do nicotine patches for health? Yes, I do nicotine patches. It is for health. So I know that I've said before, if you were on my streams at any point on my channel, on my YouTube channel, which link you can find down below, I don't do daily live streams there anymore for the time being because, I've got certain things in my life happening. But yeah, you would have seen me vape on it's a very different, it's a very different vibe. I vape, I probably swear quite a bit as well. So, but, here we're going to keep it PG and we're going to try to do some analysis and, but yeah, very different vibe over there. However, the nicotine patches, I started using them for the chronic illness that I ended up with because it was caused by a vaccine injury. And basically I ended up with a condition that kind of inflames your brain and then it sort of does a whole bunch of weird stuff in your body. It's caused by cytokine storms, but my one ended up taking the form of shingles, and then that wasn't caught for like three weeks or something, and it caused a condition called myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is effectively a disorder of the nervous system. So I was going through all sorts of papers to find out what can help me because I was getting to a point where I was like bedridden about like 2 years ago. So I'm like, okay, nicotine patches seem to help clear out some of the stuff. And then there's also indication that something called the ACE2 receptors in our body are being eaten by whatever is going on with myalgic encephalomyelitis. And apparently nicotine can help your body generate more ACE2 receptors. So I was like, I'll give this a go. Now, one thing that I noticed when I started using them, and first of all, me and nicotine, like I haven't smoked since 2008, and I was never the biggest smoker to begin with. It was mostly like a social thing for me. And then I completely stopped in 2008, didn't think about it once. But when I started using nicotine patches for this other thing, I noticed that it cleared up my brain fog and that it actually helped me to really focus and to, deal with like impulsive decisions in a much better way. So it's like, I wonder if this is like some kind of a nootropic, because we know that cigarettes help you focus, and it kind of calm people down. So there is actually a study that looked at nicotine. So yesterday we spoke about ADHD and stuff. I know that many people have a problem, with focus these days. So to kind of carry on that conversation, there was a study on nicotine patches as a way to control the side effects of ADHD to great success. Now, obviously, there's a huge stigma about it because, most people use nicotine through like smoking something. But if you use it in like the purest form, it's not that addictive. And in fact, most people who were in the study did not find that they suddenly had a need for a cigarette. They're just like, yeah, it's a nicotine patch, whatever. Now, obviously, nicotine is one of those substances where you develop tolerance to it very, very quickly. So you do have to be careful with dosing it and, not kind of slapping on step one immediately. But yeah, I've used them now for, I don't know, however long I've been ill. So 3 years, 3.5 years. So yeah, it has a very nice focusing effect for me. So Root says, D, Google molecular hydrogen inhalation therapy and PEMF. I will. Thank you. I heard about methylene blue red light therapy. Yes, I've done that. Didn't do anything for me. I've done hyperbaric chamber. Didn't do anything for me. So yeah, I know when I say that I have a chronic illness as a result of X, Y, Z, suddenly everybody turns into doctors. And trust me, I've been down the rabbit hole. I've been dealing with this for 3 years. So yeah, obviously I'm better, right? Otherwise I wouldn't be able to do any streams, right? I do think that I am recovering, so I just want to put that out there, but it's slow. It's like every 6 months I notice that I can do more in a day. Very annoying. All right, let's go back to the markets. So what do we have in regards to options levels? So the calls from yesterday have climbed up from 66, from 60, wherever that was, 66 to slightly higher at 66.25. Actually, no, I think it was 66. Yeah, here it is. Here's that spike. This is the spike that I was talking about. So yesterday's calls were located at 66, and they had a minor sort of put level just above it, and then crude oil just started going through it. This is very unusual to see after settlement, okay? And we do have the daylight savings weirdness a little bit now, but still it's very unusual to see this much of a movement in crude oil post pit close effectively. So, and you know, this morning they kind of dipped into the same area and the calls have moved up. And we reacted once again. Yes, we tried to go lower, but ultimately we reclaimed the call strike area and then it turned around. Now we're hanging above it. Like, granted, my entry here is maybe a little bit high because, you know, I wasn't awake before I needed to get ready for the stream. And then I saw that, all of that happening as I was doing analysis. And I was like, that's interesting. But yeah, so we're still inside initial balance, so nothing has been decided yet. London can do these things with crude oil because it's an out-of-hours market where it sort of creates a neutral day, but one day becomes bigger than the other, ergo creating something I call the asymmetrical neutral day. And it's basically kind of like a trending day that starts off to the wrong side. But for now, we're still inside the initial balance and not doing much else. So we are going to just sit and wait, chill out. GEX4 is so far reactive in crude oil. That's located at 66.75. So let's put that on the chart. I'm just going to do it via coordinates. I also have some news. We're going to have Coach Robert Cooney joining us tomorrow. So we were kind of talking about that for a couple of weeks, but then obviously they went on a company retreat. So we decided to leave it for this week. So yeah, Coach Robert is going to be here. He's awesome. Like, him and I have a lot of common interests because he's also obviously into trading. He's into bodybuilding. He's also a musician. He plays guitar and he codes. So it's like, you know, a whole bunch of stuff that we're interested in. So I'm really, really looking forward to having Robert on. And yeah, that's going to be happening tomorrow. So Robert is probably more on the coding scale, higher on the coding skills than I am. So we can ask him a whole bunch of questions. So, and you know, he's gone down the route of dieting as a kind of carnivore. I would love to do that, but unfortunately I react to all meats right now. So I was forced to go fish and veganism, and it's just how it has to be right now. All right, so what are we looking for? GEX4. That's where it is. So as you can see right now, we're kind of wedged in between GEX4, GEX3. We really need to jump out of that if anything's going to happen. My kind of line in the sand here is the breakdown of the gamma wall down at 66.25. So today the initial balance, because I'm looking for a swing, is kind of like just a tiny nudge in the right direction if we get it. But if we don't, you know, I'm still using some of these options levels in my as my guide to really try and stay in on the swing. And if that doesn't happen, again, that's fine. We will still be in a range. So until the range is broken, I will keep trying longs whenever I see them possible. Now, since I'm only in with one here, I do have the possibility to scale in. So let's say that we go all the way down through GEX3, get down to this gamma wall, and we start to turn around. So I see the market structure changing back the other way. I can scale in, okay? This is an entire zone with a disaster stop loss, but I'm almost expecting it to draw down and to test some of these levels before it makes up its mind. Now, the reason for using a wider stop on a small size, so you basically start with, let's say, 1 micro or something. I know this is a mini, but you know, let's just go with it. So if you start with 1 micro and you use a bigger disaster stop, however, you're pretty confident that this trade you've seen happen many times and you're working within a zone. So what will happen is that as the price sort of wags inside the zone that you're looking at, and as long as you're following market structures rather than randomly plowing in, you can scale in and actually reduce the stop size. So let's say you add 2 somewhere in the middle, and then you add another micro to make up the maximum default position of 3 in the sort of bottom third. So now what you've done, you have a maximum position size, not like 15, but 3 micros. So when I say maximum position size, I mean your maximum default size. I'm shocked at how many people don't have this as a parameter. It's like, what are we doing here? You know, what size do you trade? And then they go, oh, from 3 to 10 micros. 3 to 10. So that is like, I don't know, 700% increase in position size. No, what is your maximum default size? And they're like, oh, I don't know, I guess 5. Just gonna pull it out of the behind, like, oh, 5. It's like, what is that based on? It's not based on anything in particular, right? So when I say have a default position size, that will, you know, account for your whatever size of the account you currently have. Sometimes that will be down to the actual account balance. Other times it's the maximum drawdown that you start with in a new combine, new XFA, okay? So whenever you have a maximum default size, obviously if it's 1, you can't do anything else with it. You know, it's just like, it's 1, the end. But if you are trading with multiple micros, you do have this advantage of starting with a larger stop and then working inside a zone to lower it, so that ultimately you end up with a smaller stop on the same maximum default size. Then if you were to just plow in immediately and just go pop three lots here, and then I would still need a disaster stop. So then you're risking, you know, a lot of cash. You would be risking on a full 3 lots in crude oil. You'll be risking nearly $2,000, right? But this way, you kind of pop in 1. Right now, the risk is $650, right? If we come down and then it sort of gets nearer to the gamma wall, my stop loss is going to be just ballpark. Let's say you could get in second one there. So the stop loss on 2, so that would be scaling of 2, would suddenly be $1,000, right? And then if it goes all the way down, and if you manage to get it down to 35 ticks stop, which is really what I'm aiming for, then 35 times 30, because you've effectively scaled in so much that you've improved your average down to that area, your overall risk is going to be minimally increased. So it's going to be 1,050, and you will have 3 lots that of the maximum default position size on the stop loss that you plan for any sort of intraday trading. And then if you get the move that you want, you can turn that into a swing. But, just starting with massive stops and expecting that it's just going to be, risking $2,000, whatever. It's something that I've always done whenever I'm trading with any sort of size, where you give yourself time to react, you give yourself time over like a couple of hours to scale into a swing, rather than panicking and using immediate default max size that you assigned yourself, okay? Paul Age says, I'm in GC today, long from 2922.6. Entry was based on London VWAP Coach J urgency break and break of GEX2. Target is gamma ball 2940, risking 114 to make 486. Stop at 2918.8. I never move my stop nor scale out. You see, Paul, I do move my stop. I'd never move my stop if I'm in like intraday positions, but I do partial my trades at 2R. Okay, if I want more, and, I decide to stay in longer than 2R, that's okay, because I've already taken half off, and that's basically the net zero, but I'm trying to eke out a little bit more out of a trade, usually 3 to 4R. However, at 2R multiples, that is where things become statistically viable, however you want to play it. Before then, it's a little bit tricky. But when you scale out, when you partial, if you partial a third of a position, let's say you're in with 3, you only take off 1 at 2R multiples, you somewhat protect the position, so you don't you remove the risk, but you do cover most of it. You can then actually be in a runner of like 2 lots for most of the swing, whilst minimizing that, the stop loss that you initially used. But yeah, I never move stops because that never works for me. I always find that I'm jeopardizing the stop loss placement that I've carefully thought through, and then it just becomes a nonsense thing. Like maybe if you're trading NQ or something, there is an argument that NQ is so quick with, whatever it does, like doing zoomies and stuff, that you just it doesn't allow you too much time to control yourself. So therefore moving a stop might be a better approach, but that would be more scalper style, right? I'm not a scalper unless I have to be. So, which means either, we have a range bound day, there's no swings available. But, the good thing about me is that I do trade multiple things, right? So it's not just, NQ is life, nothing else exists, blinkers, NQ. I'm more, of the camp of kind of Coach Paul, where, I look at one product, do we have an opportunity? If I don't see a good opportunity, I move to something else. And then I keep doing that until I find the product that has the right sort of conditions for what I'm trying to achieve with it. That does become easier if you're using a systematic approach. So if you're always using different levels, or you're like not sure, or you don't have super confidence in your system, then you obviously can't be jumping from product to product, because all you're doing is increasing exposure to different markets without actually knowing what you want to see, right? So whilst you're a more novice trader, I know, Paul, you've been at this game for 4 to 5 years, so you're kind of more intermediate. I wouldn't say that, you have all of the right things going for you. But if somebody is, like, let's say, only been trading for a few months, and then they're like, I'm going to do what Dee does. I'm going to trade platinum and copper and crude oil and ES and DAX and all of this. But you can't do that as a novice trader. It's kind of like, how would I put it? let's say you try to learn how to play music, so you want to learn an instrument, but you don't focus on one thing. You decide that you're going to learn piano and guitar and violin and flute and saxophone all at the same time. It's never going to work, right? Because your skills are going to be all over the place. But you learn one instrument, you stick with it for like 3 to 4 years, then you add another one. That's a different story, right? Because you already have skills over there that you can bring over, the transferable skills that you can bring over to a new instrument. And trading is exactly the same way. So if you're not focusing on, on one product, and that product needs to be appropriate for beginners as well. I see way too many people starting on NQ, and then they're like, oh, it's not going well. It's like, of course it's not going to go well. You've effectively, so here's another music analogy. It's like taking, like trying to learn piano and taking a Prokofiev piece, which is all like, it's like really technically advanced, and the phrases are crazy. It's like like really, really big speed. Or trying to have Flight of the Bumblebee as your very first piece. Like you've never really played an instrument, but hey, now you're going to be playing. Like it's not going to happen, right? It's like, let's use some common sense here. And that's what you're doing if you've only started trading like, very recently, let's say within the last year or so, and your choice or your weapon of choice, your poison, literally is NQ. And, it's going to put you into a false state of hope where if you catch one big day or you have like a decent day one day, now what's going on? This is like, you've heard Mick yesterday from the risk team say it was a total bloodbath. Why? It's because so many people are just so into equities and, nothing else exists. The high volatility of the products that we're seeing in equity, on the equity side, that kills accounts, okay? Even for more experienced traders, it kills accounts if you don't know how to adjust and actually take advantage of it. And, if you're not doing well right now, I would take this opportunity to figure out some other markets. That would be the time when the main product that you've tried to grapple with has gone so insane that you just don't know what to do with it, right? It's so quick. You would have to use humongous stop losses to actually make a position last longer than 3.5 seconds. So you don't want to learn on on something like that. Paul H says, I use the same 3 plays across metals and indexes. Big difference between metals too. I'm taking my time to get to know these products, and your session here is the place to be. Thank you, Paul. I mean, you're one of the few people that actually takes on everything that we talk about. You take on the best pieces of Coach Jay. You take the best pieces of what I talk about, and you try them out. You take what works for you, and you go, no, actually, this is not for me. So this is what traders should be doing. It's not necessarily like, look, if you come to me to teach you, Marcus Stalker's method, that's a different ball game, right? Because then I will be teaching you the ins and outs of the levels that I use, how I approach the session, how I approach the day, how I do risk management. And you have to follow some of the risk rules and risk models that I give you in the entire methodology. Why? Because otherwise it won't work. The methodology that I use has some very, like, for example, when I say to people, use 2R multiples as a default. Sometimes I will use 4 and 5R, but that's not going to be every day. And it's down to my skill set to decide when is the time to chase more. But on average, just don't chase more, right? Because my stops that I advise in the methodology and my targets work in sync. So I've had some people who are like, no, I know better. Now I'm going to start changing the risk model. And then they come back to me after 3 months and they go, oh, I stepped away from the risk model rules and it didn't go that well. So it seems that every time I step away from the risk model rules, I don't do well. And I'm like, yeah, because those rules are there for a reason. And again, didn't pull them out of thin air. I pulled them out of, us doing research and constantly doing, machine learning optimizations to see if something's changed, whether we need to account for stop loss sizes or not. Does 2R still stand as the most frequently reached target? And you start messing with every part of that, any part of that, you're going to have different results. And you can't then come to me and go, oh, boo, it's not working. It's like, you're not following the rules. Of course it's not going to work. So it's like, follow the rules or get out. No, just joking. But if you're going to mess with the rules, at least have an understanding of why they're there and what could be done maybe to improve things. It's not that I say, oh, you have to use this size stop. I do have leeway. I do have like a sliding scale. But I also say that once you go over a certain number, either increasing size of the stop or decreasing size of the stop, you will run into issues with the risk model not working as it was intended to, okay? Because the numbers don't add up. It's not based on what the product is doing. It's based on what you want it to do. And that's always a problem. Aniket says, will Topstep start crypto payment? It would be helpful for traders. I don't know. I don't work for Topstep support. In case you haven't noticed, I'm an on-air trader, personality. I don't know. I don't know what their payment processing plans are. So, that will be something to ask MP, not me. But I doubt it because crypto payments are still very sketchy. So that would be very difficult to track. So yeah. Short Life Hack says, take piano and first recital is Moonlight Sonata, third movement. Yes. Exactly. So, Short Life Hacks actually comes from the prop industry. I think you're a market maker, right? So yeah, when you hear Short Life Hacks going, yeah, I've just done like 100 trades a day, he was a local or they were a local, and that's an entirely different skill set. So yesterday in the VIP group that I run, my chameleonaires, I was saying that, if you're doing 30, 40, 50 trades a day, and you are not really sure why you're doing that, it's not the best thing. Because you're not, you cannot tell me as somebody who's starting out that you can find 50 opportunities in a day that are all star setups. It's some sort of an impulse there. If we're talking traders that have been doing this, if I talk to Coach Hoop and he tells me, yeah, I've done 30 trades today, I'm not worried. I'm like, yeah, of course you did. You're more a scalper, right? Scalper style. Awesome. But if I see that and I ask people, how long have you been trading? And they go 6 months, that has nothing to do with reality. You're just clicking buttons. And, I always say, well, think as if you were a CTA and you have to explain every single trade that you've done. And, there is such a thing called churning with the brokerages and stuff. And if you are caught doing that as a licensed person, they will have questions for you. That is actually from a regulatory standpoint, that is not preferable, because it either means that you are trying to flip your customers' money for extra commissions without actually generating any meaningful profits. So effectively putting the money in your pocket as an introducing broker or something, because usually if you are doing that job, you will get money from commissions that are being traded on the exchange. So it's effectively in your weird interest, slightly skewed interest, to have as many trades as possible, right? But if there is a potential for churning and you do have some sort of an investment fund, you will be investigated. Get real. That is not how you're doing things, especially if there are no significant profits in the account. What what is going on here? So, there are certain practices that people are just unaware of, and they keep clicking buttons. However, clicking buttons without any sense to it and not actually generating money. If there are, profits generated consistently over, let's say 3 to 6 months, and you can actually justify every single reason for doing a trade. You can be a scalper and you can do 30, 40, 50 trades a day. That's fine. But profits need to show that this is what you're meant to be doing. However, I will say publicly, for most people, scalping is not the way. For most people, scalping just means that you have no idea what you're doing. Like, just plain and simple, right? That you cannot find a good trade location that will last you longer than 3 seconds. And that's a problem with a trade location. It's not a problem with, I'm being impulsive. You just don't know what a good trading location looks like. Like, you have no idea. So work on that skill rather than going, I'm a scalper. You're not a scalper if you're not making money. Like, end of. End of. Or if you haven't managed to stay profitable for longer than a week or two, that's not a scalper. You're still clicking buttons. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. But get real. We have to, as traders, you have to be honest with yourself. You can't just keep going if it's not working. Like, I have a few people in the VIP that haven't even popped their head into Discord. I tried tagging them, everything. They're just whatever. What do I see them do? They reset a combine, put themselves in a hole in the VIP combine in a day, so minus 3K. Boom. Then they wait because you can only get 2 free resets a month, but because they blew it in one day, they now have to wait until the reset again. And it's what are you doing? What are you doing? You're just doing the same thing over and over. Why be in the VIP in the first place, right? So yeah. Rude says, that's me, 6-month cowboy, finally got funded and now trying to learn everything I can to develop a strategy. So here's an idea. Shouldn't you already have a strategy in order to trade in a funded account? So I would guess that you had some lucky days there and got funded. It's probably not going to last. If it lasts, awesome. You're one in 100,000 people that manages to be a newbie and maintain the funded account immediately. For everybody else, the likelihood of risk of ruin is that it's not going to last, and that's okay, right? But if I was going into a funded account, I would want to have a solid strategy behind it first, because there are things in the funded account that don't allow you to press start again, right? There's no resets. So if you blow up, it kind of creates a psychological trauma. I wouldn't want that for you, okay? I would want you to be pretty solid and to just go, okay, now I need to maybe go back to the combine, save the XFA, right? Don't put all of your trading in there, but just go, right, I'm gonna maybe see if I can develop a strategy and then go back to the XFA and do it. So just an idea, right? Short Life Hacks says, we did experiments that traders get stimulus from flickering green numbers. Absolutely. There's that dopamine release, right? You see some green and you're like, oh, green. Oh, green. I want more of that. I want more of that. Oh, another trade. But that's an impulse, right? That's not I see a good setup. No, it's I want more dopamine. More. It's literally just having a line of Coke. That's it. More. Let's have more. Okay. Short Life Hacks. I don't scalp without an algo. I don't do it manually. You see? Yeah, it's okay. I didn't know that about you. If you say you scalp, make 10,000 plus trade sample size, then you'll know you have an edge. Absolutely. This is where, Short Life Hacks 100% agree. So you have an algorithm, it does it for you. Awesome. So if you so here is what I always say to people in with my style of trading, that you need to have an absolute minimum of 3 months and a minimum of 50 trades done. Ideally 100, 200. But what they're saying is that if you're a scalper, you need to have a sample size of 10,000 trades before you figure out if you have an edge. Coming from a scalper with an algo, yeah? 10,000 trades. And then you see what your numbers are. If after 10,000 trades or over, so he says 10,000 plus, if you don't have numbers that are matching and you don't have positive expectancy, so the numbers are not actually generating anything, you are gambling. Like, end of story. There's no, like, numbers don't lie, right? So we need a decent sample size. And for scalping, obviously you need more, because if you're going to be doing, 50, 100, 200 trades a day, you need to have a good sample size as well. $100 at a baseline, you get your baseline average, because 10,000 trades, you'd be dead. Yeah, but I mean, if you automate it, you can easily backtest that, and it could be a starting point, and then you could use an out of sample time as well. So let's say you run it for like 2-3 weeks and see whether the numbers are even ballpark similar anyway. Now with the scalping, there's slippage, there's slippage. And with scalping, that's death. If you get any sort of slippage and you're only using small stop sizes, getting a bad fill, it will screw everything up. So unfortunately, if you're doing back testing, you're not going to get that. They try to simulate slippage, but it's nowhere. there's like heaven and earth. It has nothing to do with anything. So you absolutely have to have the ability to generate alpha as a scalper, but also to know how sensitive your strategy is to like slippage. Because I know there were some algorithms kicking about back in the day that were breakout algorithms. So basically they were just like scalping 10 ticks from the breakouts. Unfortunately, once enough people signed up for those algorithms, they started experiencing a lot of slippage because size got to them, right? So when you go over a certain size and you're expecting to fill like a 500 lots at exactly the size that you want it to, and it's like, it has to be here. It's always like, that's never going to work in real markets, right? Because if you're aiming for a 10-tick stop, but then you get a bad fill and it fills you 5 ticks, even like literally 5 ticks out of the price that you initially wanted to go in, that's a massive difference, and that's never going to work, okay? So real market's very, very different from this sim environment that we see. And the more scalpy you are, the more sensitive you will be to that. Like your trading style will be more sensitive to that. All right, so we have a question. Sorry, my browser is really slow today. I don't know what's going on. Go back to YouTube. Okay. Avi says, Dee, do you think Topstep will introduce LIFO in the trade matching as an option? So trade matching is not done with Topstep. Trade matching is done by the CME. So they have nothing to do with it. It's a clearinghouse, right? So, they are, like, maybe they become a brokerage, but even that goes through a clearinghouse. So it's not going to be Topstep introducing any sort of order matching in their thing. It's done by the exchange. Centralized exchanges work through CME. Everybody has the same data feed. Everybody, obviously you have different companies, but generally it's the same data because it's the same exchange. So that question would be better off asked the CME than Topstep. Sicarios K9 says, do you think Topstep X will be able to introduce more indicators? I hope so. I hope so. That's what we're all really angling for, because I know that, Topstep X is a nice clean platform. It's very good for the purposes of trading one or two instruments in a prop firm. But guys, I'll be honest, I trade multiple products, and not having the ability to undock screens so I can put my multiple products everywhere, it's a bit of a problem for me, But you know, if I'm just going to do like one trade here and there for you guys, I will decide ahead of time what I'm going to trade. Because, you know, when I'm doing my morning prep, and I usually spend 20 minutes doing that, you know, I scan through all of my markets and I scan through all of my 4 screens. And I'm like, okay, that looks all right. That looks all right. That's quite terrible. Not interested in that today. Okay, now I'm going to talk about this. So, you know, not having the ability to undock charts, bit of an issue. Not having the ability to use third-party indicators, also a bit of an issue, right? But they're growing, right? They're growing. So we'll see what happens. Excuse me. Short Life Hacks says TSX looks cool, needs more DOM options. Yeah, I agree. So I would like to see ATMs so that, for example, when I have my different products, so that I can just drop down. So here they have the drop down for the name of the account. And it's like, that's a bit pointless for me. I would like a drop down to show me my brackets that I've preset with the size that I want to trade. Like, for example, I might trade 1 lot on crude oil, but I would trade 2 lots on platinum because it's cheaper than crude oil. However, to keep the risk the same or similar, I want the option to save that. Now, if I want to do something, I have to change the chart. I have to change the DOM. I have to change, because there's no space. There's not enough space for me to put all of my things that I want to put on. So it's, you know, it's not ideal, but it is clean and it is very customizable by whatever you guys want to see. You know, I'm still hoping someday we get Eurex for this market. All right, on the crude oil DOM, I am seeing 120 lots to the upside, 66.80. That is with my trade idea. So we'll see where they want to take it. I'm just going to have a look at what's happening. Yeah, so this might end up as one of those days where we had a little bit of excess on the profile. And then it kind of goes into a move. But yeah, 66.80 is now on the cards to be hunted. And just for reference, 66.80 is all the way up here. So it is literally just where they're expecting a lot of stops to be popped. This is Asia high. That's Asia high, 66.85, 84. So they obviously want to hunt that. So whoever this is a market maker hunting. Rawr. Paul H says, you can use the tiny open window right next to the full screen that allows multiple screens. Really? Hold on. Tiny new open window. So now that's full screen mode. That's maximize. Add components? No. Spacer? I don't know where the tiny open new window right next to full. Where is that? This one? No. This is where you can see I'm compare red symbol. Bruno, do you know where this thing is? Because I can't seem to find this extra. Is it here? No. Add new components? No. No idea. Okay, I'm going to explore that, Paul, but thank you for letting me know that there is an option to have multi-screens. This one? No. But yeah, that would actually really help me because then I can have multiple screens everywhere. So, yeah. Top right corner on Topstep. Open new window. That's not it. Oh yeah, that is it. Open new window. Yeah, except, hold on. But if I open new window, yeah, that's not going to work. You see? Because it's not, it doesn't allow me to be in with like 2 different sessions. So, yeah. So no multi-screens. Yeah, so I have the live account and I have the sim, obviously. You can't have multiple sessions for that. Yeah, but you saw what happened. It didn't allow me to run yet another session. And if I do that, if I log in, it logs me out of this one. So I still only have one tab, right? It doesn't for me. So maybe it's because I have a live account. I don't know, but it doesn't allow me to be like, let's say I have 2 combines and I want it on 2 screens. If I log into one screen, it automatically kicks me out of the other one. So, I don't know. All right. Some movement in crude oil. Very slow. Very slow. Very slow. Let's have a look at some other markets. What is going on? I can see copper is having a bit of sellers stepping in. Not terribly visible on the other time frames. And let's have a sniff around maybe gold, because Paul, you're in on gold. Right, that 29.30 is still causing trouble. That was the weekly kickoff high. I don't know whether it is still. And let me just... Thank you, Bruno. I'm just reading. Yeah, so for some reason that is not working for me. Okay, never mind. Let's carry on. Let me grab some options activity stuff and levels or for gold. But yeah, 29.30 has kind of been like a pivotal level, and I had this red supply zone marked quite a long time ago. Okay, so we have GEX2. Paul, you were mentioning that was the break. GEX5 is all the way up to 29.35. Those are small levels. All of them are small levels. We have the core resistance and gamma wall up at 29.40. 29.40 all the way here. And there's nothing super obvious. Let me look at my levels as well. Because options are very well, but there is such a thing as quantitative ranges and algorithmic ranges that might provide a bit more detail. Otherwise, this thing is just wagging around irrelevant levels. So where is the whole ADR? Far away. Very far away. So ADR, ASR on gold, nowhere to be seen. The only thing that I can see in gold is that on the multi-day volume profile, we do have a bit of a low volume area here. But you've seen that I have this thing from last week, is it? When we were, like, I didn't touch gold since then. And last week I was... saying there's a supply there. So we're basically at the top of that range now. Multiple tests of the range, but still reacting. So ergo still a range, right? So yeah, let's see if GEX2 can break down. That could be a sign that maybe some selling might come in. So GEX2 for reference is 29.25. To the downside, we have 29.15 as an HVL from 0 DTE options. We are opening inside value for London. And we're kind of floating on the COMEX value high. So value high COMEX is 29.26.1. And then it's a small, very small day yesterday. Is that right? Do I have this right? Hold on. Yeah. Well, you haven't seen that very often. Oh, they're waiting for CPI today. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, we have CPI today. I think I saw the calendar, but again, just waking up. Yeah, so we have CPI, massive thing. That's coming in about 3 hours time. So don't have any positions open into it. It's not worth it. It's just like, nah. It's a bit difficult. High Volume says, Dee, I would like to start implementing the options levels on my charts. What's the best way to go about that? So like I said, I use MentorQ for that. I find that the options on their own are not really going to provide you context. At least it doesn't for me. So I use it with my methodology. So I have a whole bunch of kind of a pre-flight checklist that I use already and that I have been using for a very long time. But then all I want to see is that we effectively react around particular levels in light of what I expected to do in regards to the day type, chart location, profile, etc. So to me, they're just like another stepping stone. And in my methodology, I explained that in my level 3, sort of towards the end, as a cherry on top, not as like, oh, this is the be all and end all. Are they useful? Absolutely. But just beware that you still need to have contextual data about, initial balance, about whether the auction is strong or not, whether it's a range-bound day. And you're not going to get that from the options. You might get an inclination that we're either in a negative or positive gamma environment, which sometimes could be used to figure out if it's going to be a range-bound day or not. However, I've got to say the open inside value tends to be more accurate for me. Every time I try to use the option gamma environment, it just, it had like a sort of a 50-50 chance of working out. Whereas if we are opening inside value in balance, we don't have a big release, there's about a 65 to 70% chance, depends on what you're trading, that you're going to end up in a range-bound day. So that's pretty high odds of reading the day type properly. And then similarly, if you open with a mild imbalance, like let's say just above value, and you don't accept value within the first couple of hours of active regular trading hours, you have a really good chance, like 65, 70% again, of going into some sort of a continuation move. It doesn't have to be a big trending day, but you're going to get a move in that direction. How far and for how long, those are the unknowns. Markets are always the equation with two unknowns, with two X's in it. So it's like we have the price. We know where it is now, but where it's going to be and for how long it's going to stay there. It's one of those things. Tostino says, hi, Dee, need some advice. I got thrashed in February, and I made sure that I don't read that as trashed, because I was like, that's something else. And it's carrying over to every trade. Okay, so we spoke about carrying over the psychological traumas briefly from whatever happened previously in your trading journey, right? So this is what you're dealing with now, Tostino. I would suggest dealing with something like EMDR. So EMDR is a technique to deal with psychological traumas, because obviously now you say you are doing single micros, but I can't close my positions until they turn against me. How do I fix this? So the first fix, and again, I'm not a trauma psychologist or psychiatrist or anything of the sort. I'm just another trader with a passing interest in psychiatry and psychology, because we have to deal with that every day. I would say first deal with the trauma. And it's going to be hard because EMDR uses lateral eye movements to bring up the thing that caused you to be upset about, and the thing. So you're effectively suffering from PTSD. So this is what what it boils down to. And before you can turn it around, you have to release that trauma, right? The best way to do it is EMDR. You have the virtual EMDR where you don't, like, it's not like a meditation, like nobody needs to guide it through it. All you need to do is follow the ball and move your eyes left, right, as you're bringing up emotions. It's sort of guided, but it's kind of textual guided, and then they do the session. I will warn you that it's pretty full on. Like the first time you try to bring up the issues, there's going to be emotions. Even me, I'm not particularly emotional, but I did have a few hang-ups, because of the wars that we've been through and stuff. So I used EMDR with great success to, for example, stop being twitchy every time I hear a plane flying over me, because, we were, or to give you an idea, I realized I needed help when my husband was playing the video game. He was playing... It wasn't CSGO, it was something else. And it had like very different sounds from CSGO is mainly like just gunshots and stuff. But he was playing this video game that had planes that are kind of running very low. And I don't know why, it just reminded me of the time when we got bombed, right? And I freaked out. I was like, stop that right now. What are you doing? I started shouting. And then I thought to myself, that was an odd reaction. What's going on there? But to me, because I'm not super emotional, every time I have an emotional outburst, I immediately kind of step outside myself and go, well, that was a bit weird, Dee, what the hell? And then I try and deal with it, right? So I do have that like out-of-body introspective analysis by default. I don't know why I have it, but I do. So then I kind of signed up to go to therapy, but that got a bit weird because, I don't know, the dude was just very creepy and just very odd. So I decided that wasn't for me. He was just like, I don't know. Let's not get into that. But yeah, let's just say it was a really weird experience going in with an actual therapist, because that's not what I expected. So I decided to work through it by myself, and I found EMDR as the alternative option of working through your traumas. And it took me probably about 3 months before I was totally okay with hearing planes and stuff, and not freaking out, and just kind of being cool with the game, and even myself being able to go through the video game without freaking out. So EMDR works very well for all sorts of trauma, not just psychology, not just trading and, any sort of warlike situations, but anything, even if you have like childhood trauma, or if, let's say you had a father who was drinking and maybe beating the crap out of his children. That creates traumas, right? So you need to deal with that as an adult. It's never comfortable, but it does help to go forward. So that'll be step 1. Step 2 would be to go over your analytics and stats. So export the trades that you've done. And then, even though it was a terrible time, there's going to be information in your stats that you're going to be able to use going forward. Like, for example, look at the time of day, like hour of day, when you didn't suck and when you maybe had, oh my God, I was actually up for that hour. So remember that hour of day and think of it as like, ooh, something special was going on here, that even when I was sucking at all other times of the day, on this day, it was actually pretty good. And then look at your MFE and MAE if you can. This is where logging your trades as you're doing them can be really useful, because if you're not doing that, you're going to have to go back and put in those numbers, unless you have something that tracks open equity. Like, for example, I know NinjaTrader has it, because Ninja is obviously natively tracks all the open equity. So when you are dragging out your performance stats, you're effectively getting the MAE and MFE numbers as well. So yeah, that would be, very useful going forward, because it's like, well, how far did my MFE number go? And that tells you how many ticks in profit you were, or how much money you were in profit for, before it turned around to smack you in the face. So going forward, you can extrapolate that if your MFE was, let's say, 40 points, but you you held it, threw it until it reversed, and then ultimately you closed it when it was already back to break even or a loss. Your MFE needs to change. So you're like, okay, so MFE was 40 points. Let me put my target at 40 points, and let me try and adjust my stops to account for the fact that 40 ticks is now going to be my new target. So just by the fact that you completely had a losing time, it doesn't mean that you can't have stats connected that we can derive to do some very good trading going forward. It doesn't have to be like, oh my God, I suck. Victim. I'm a victim. The markets, they're beating me up. They don't like me. They don't know I exist. And then, get your knickers in a twist over it. Don't think about it that way. Just think, okay, that was interesting. What can I learn from it? Okay. You're not going to be, a good trader if you're crying over your fate. Even if you lose an account, it's just some money. It's just some money. It's okay. These are prop accounts. It's not going to affect your standard of life in any shape or form. That's why prop is good to remove risk to your own capital. Even if you F it up royally, nothing changes in your life, right? But generally, you do have to deal with the trauma. You have to derive the statistics from whatever bits and pieces you did do well. Maybe it was just a high volatility. Like, I'm sure you had some winning trades, right? It wasn't all just lose. And if it was, I would be very careful. However, there's usually, winning trades than losing trades, and then more losing trades than winning trades, or the losses are bigger than the winners, or, there's some sort of a combination of why you ended up having a losing month. Maybe you basically wanted to, to make money really quickly. So you oversized. So there was nothing wrong with the actual trades and trade decisions, but it was too much size for the size of the account that you were trading. You can change that easily, right? You say you're down to micros, excellent. But yeah, you do need to deal with the trauma. Justina also says, Dee, should I be going into the EMDR with the intention of having it affect my trading or my trauma? I have a CBT therapist, so it would be different. Usually what happens is that when you're trying to deal with the trauma in an EMDR session, and you already have a therapist, so they might also know how EMDR sessions are conducted, is to have it in two parts. So the first part, you effectively bring up the stuff that brought you trauma, and you completely focus on getting all of those emotions out of you. So be angry, be frustrated, be scared, live through the times when it was disgustingly horrible to actually trade. We always say, when trading is working, it's beautiful. When it's not working, it's absolutely terrifying. You will hear Hogue say that. And that's very true. It's very true, right? So when you are doing an EMDR part 1, it's usually done in the same session if the person is able to handle it emotionally, right? So the first step would be to bring everything up. So typically they will make you either talk about it or write it out, all the stuff that you need to focus on. And then for the first part of the EMDR therapy, you will focus on the actual trauma and effectively reliving it. This is the hard part, right? Because, you have some people who have, gone through some terribly traumatic things that do not even compare to all of our little, I lost some money, boo. People were like physically assaulted. They, maybe went through a car accident that was horrendous that killed their loved ones. Those are the sort of traumas that EMDR therapy also deals with. So when you put that into perspective with our thing, it's like, I'm afraid of the market. It just sounds so ridiculous. And maybe put that into perspective. But for the first part of the session, you do need to bring up the trauma. So bring up the fear, bring up, losing the account, bring up all of the negative stuff that was going through your head. Now, once the first part was done, some people cannot go into the second part of the EMDR therapy because it's so full on, because they're like bawling their eyes out and they're just crying and, or they're so afraid and like, what's happening? But then it gets easier, right? You go into another session of EMDR, you try to bring up all the same stuff, and then you notice that the second time around, it's easier. It's like it's easier to talk about it. It's easier to bring up those feelings, and those feelings don't have as much of a hold on you. It's a very odd experience, you know. God, next we'll be singing Kumbaya and holding hands here. But yeah, it is useful. I know we've gone a little bit into like therapy and all of that, but I think it will be a useful thing for everybody who has ever had any traumas. Now, the second part, once you can do the second part of EMDR on the same day, comprises of you now effectively getting short life hacks. It was Battlefields. Yeah, it was Battlefields. Yeah. It's not Call of Duty because no, Call of Duty has different sounds. Anyways, back to EMDR. So in the second session of EMDR, you would be bringing up all the positive things to your personality that just don't make it true. Like, for example, if you've had a bad trading month and now you're afraid, and then you go, I can't trade, I'm a bad trader. That's not true, generally, right? You can say that maybe you're still learning, but many people go into, oh, I'm not a good trader, I suck as a person, I'm useless. Like they go down this like self-deprecating, negative criticism. I suck at everything, and I'm just not. I'll never be able to get there. So they want you to say statements that are true and factual about yourself. That, for example, in trading, you can say, well, just by the fact that I'm trying, it means that I am different from other people. That's a positive belief about yourself, right? We're all here because we don't ultimately want a 9 to 5, okay? You're already outside of the average. That's a good thing. So the next EMDR session will be focusing on the positives around your trading, and then go, okay, what are the other positives? You can go more specific. It's like, well, I found that I actually did have an hour between, let's say, 1 and 2 p.m. when I actually was positive. So that means that I do know what I'm doing and that I'm not useless. So, you know, that would be the next step. You can customize this to death to match your particular self-limiting beliefs and traumas. But basically, step 1, bring up the trauma. Go through the first EMDR session. Then bring up the positive beliefs about yourself and keep going. Somehow with the lateral eye movement, I don't know how it works, it's a neuroscience thing, but it basically starts to minimize the hold that psychological traumas have in our lives. And EMDR is much more effective than CBT when it comes to trading and psychological traumas specifically. Yeah, so Short Life Hacks says, oh yeah, I remember Short Life Hacks. Man, I remember NinjaTrader 7. So do I. In fact, NinjaTrader 7 was the one that I was like, I'm not coding for this. This is terrible. Like they're still stuck on a dinosaur version of .NET and C#, man. But now they've moved into sort of the 21st century, so they're right. I actually like NinjaTrader. I've got to say, it is one of my favorite platforms to trade on. But hey, you know. Short Life Hacks says MAE and MFE are the 2 strongest metrics you can use to sharpen your edge that you haven't seen yet. There we go. Yeah. After that, nail down execution. The win rate will improve. There you go. Money can always be earned. Yeah. Shay Hughes says, okay, she's actually quite funny. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. Glad you find me funny. Yeah. Best therapy is love therapy. I disagree. There's toxic love. We don't need that. Like, you know, if you ever see like somebody with a kind of a narcissistic parent, they're like, I love you. You know, this, and then smack. This hurts me more than it hurts you. It's like, no, it doesn't. Knowledge Seeker says, I see trades as numbers, not money. It removes stress or losing. Why do you think I've got ticks here? Because, I have different size accounts, right? So, one of them, the YOLO account, is like, where is it at now? 113K. Then, we have our big sort of corporate accounts. I have prop accounts all over the place. It's like, how am I going to track the quality of the trade if I've got dollar amounts? Because one of them is making like $2 a tick, the other one's making $2.50 a tick. It's like, so to remove the inconsistencies, I just look at everything in ticks, and that way every trade looks the same. 3 ticks here is 3 ticks there, and it's also 3 ticks there. It makes no difference, right? But if you put dollar amounts, suddenly you're like, oh, this was making 40. And what I found is that when I try to trade micros at this point in my career, I'm like, oh boy, that was only like $60. I want more. And then it screws me. That's what I get, right? And then I'm like, I'm going to get a trade that is going to run for 600 ticks. And that means then I'm going to generate like $600. And I'm like... yeah, that ain't happening, Dee. And that's where, you have to change it to ticks and just work in percentages or something just to kind of try and get over it. But, there is a cutoff point where you're just like, what is this? Just put me out of my misery. Like, just reset the combine. Is it? Tushar says, one of the best pieces of advice I received from a psychologist about negative self-talk. Would you say that to anyone else in their face? Then why are you saying it to yourself? Exactly. That is a very, very good point. So even though I'm a little bit mouthy, so if somebody irks me and rubs me the wrong way for no reason whatsoever, I'm gonna clap back, right? So I've done it on online as well. You've seen me do it with trolls, not like in a terribly mean way, but I just find ways that will hurt them the most without shouting, right? So for the trolls, usually they go, "Oh, Dee, you suck. You need some in your life." I've had those kind of messages, right? And I was like, "Yeah, man, just go and take your meds and leave me alone." It's just, yeah, you cannot imagine like being in the sort of a semi-public eye, the amount of crap that we get. Like, you just have to develop thick skin and maybe call them out a little bit, just enough for them to stop doing things. And shouting at them and going, "Oh, you've hurt me," it's kind of like the same thing as the markets. You can't give them the satisfaction that's actually affecting you. And really, for me, I couldn't give them monkeys, right? So whenever I see a terrible message, through DMs or, on YouTube or something, I just either delete it or, I sometimes report them if they're really nasty. But generally, I'm just like, okay, dude, yeah, you just go and, somebody woke up on the wrong side of the bed today and chose violence. Don't involve me in that. Yeah, because some people get really affected by trolls. You step into this space and suddenly people are like out to get you or whatever. And it's like, just don't engage, or engage a little bit enough to give them a, smart remark. I never insult trolls. So, I've actually, when I had like red and red hair, sorry, black and red hair, red and red hair. What am I talking about? So yeah, I had black and red hair a few years ago. I'm trying to go back to red, but I keep like getting really tired at night, and I'm like, oh, I can't be bothered. And all it takes is just to put, a little bit of hair dye so that I can have my crazy hair colors back. I'm probably going to have to do that because I can see my gray is kind of coming up. But when I had like the screaming big black and red hair, I used to have this guy on Twitter who was always like, "You look like the weirdest punk or craziest punk ever." And then I would be, back then I was still posting my trades as I was doing them. And then I said to him, Yeah, what do you want, man? Like, just leave me alone. I'm not posting this for you. I'm posting it for me because I was like tracking all the setups. And somehow when you externalize the trade, you can kind of own up to it and just go, this is the trade. So at one point, I was, sort of posting charts and everything. And, I was less busy as well. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be doing this now. And every time I posted a trade, he's like, well, it's a short here. And then the short would work out. He's like, well, all right, so you can kind of trade, but, you don't have to shove it in our face. And I was like, I'm not shoving anything in the face. It was a chart. What? And then in the end, I was just like, dude, just stay on your meds because you're not well. And then he goes, how do you know that I need meds? And yes, and you're right, I didn't take them today. And I was like, oh, shit. So I hit a bit of a, press the button sort of thing. Are we trading or talking about hair? Joab, might surprise you to realize that I can do both. Multitasking, whatever next. Crude oil coming up to GEX4. My trade is still on there. So, it's a swing. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Markets and trading is boring. I'm in one trade. I've been in one trade for 90 minutes, 2 hours. So yeah, we can do both, man. We can do both. Half of the trading talk that you get is not trading related. Like if you've ever worked in a prop office, the amount of crap that I've heard in their very inappropriate conversations as well. We have to keep it PG, obviously, but I always like those moments where you just go off on a tangent and you're talking about everything and anything, and then you go back to trading. But there's nothing like this has been stuck between GEX3 and GEX4. What do you want me to keep saying? Crude oil stuck between GEX3 and GEX4. Copper might be turning around, but dangerous because we're at the it's a trending market, so I still need to see some commitment to the downside. This is the daily chart. Right now, there's nothing there. It's just going up, up, and up. I'm not, I need to see some sort of a turnaround. So for now, Joab, I'm on crude oil. We still have the 66.80, 123 contracts on the offer. They will probably hunt that. I've been waiting for that. And whilst we're waiting, we are talking. And we're talking traumas, we're talking hair, we're talking dogs. Don't like it? Don't watch. You have the long trades on crude oil that I'm probably going to be in on for most of the day, unless we completely break down below 66.25. If that doesn't happen, you stay in. Do I have a profit target on this trade? So I'm aiming for about 180 ticks profit on crude oil if we can get it. So that's basically almost the entire, it is the entire ADR. Whether we're going to get there, I don't know. If I see that we've gone into profit, like let's say we get to post 9 a.m. Central and we see a big reversal after London kind of took it pretty decently up and there's no other levels, I will probably just book that wherever it is. For reference, we do have the projected ranges to the upside at 67.44. So that's, 67.44. Yeah, so that's, it's a ways away. And then any other notable levels is the HVL at 67. Would expect a little bit of a slowdown there. And then apart from that, we have 68 and probably 70. I can't scroll all the way up there. But basically, if this keeps going, this is a swing. Just watch for post 9 a.m. Central reversal. They can be quite violent. So yeah. All right. So I do have a loose profit target, but if we get to 180 ticks, I will be perfectly happy with that. Short Life Hack says, man, dogs. I got a Chow and a Lab and a German Shepherd. 3. Yeah. Mad at the Lab's floppy ears. Yeah, I do love the floppy ears. All of mine have got floppy ears. They're beautiful. Yeah. Love dogs. Flip It says, where you from? So that's a bit complicated. So I'm basically a Mediterranean mix. I was born and raised in Belgrade, former Yugoslavia. However, I did live in London for, intermittent times and stuff. And then I finally decided that London will be my home about 20 some years ago. And I've become a naturalized British citizen. I still live in London. However, towards the end of this month, I'm moving to the countryside, to an area that's called Surrey. Still close to London, about an hour out. So it's not like I'm, moving countries. But yeah, so I am currently still based in London, in Battersea. I've been here for 20 years. It's time to move. All right. Steve D says 200 EMA at 66.78 on CL. Do you look at the daily? Do you look at the D on the what's the D? Yeah. Crude oil inventories are expecting to be storm in a teacup. And we'll see. What is your win rate on this combine? Well, actually, I'm outperforming it. It was sub 50%. So I aim for the trade win rates to be between 40 and 45%, right? Obviously, my profit factor is higher. I did a few scalps here and there. But yeah, it's been pretty stress-free. So that's how many days I've been in. That's my percentage of trade win, average win versus average loss. Profit factor as an overall is 1.5, so just over 1.5. The more scalpy I get, the less profit factor. But I still try to maintain it at all times above 1.3, depends on whether I'm scalping or not. This combine is a mix of both. I've done some scalps, I've done some swings, so therefore that's kind of reflected in this thing as well. 50%, profit factor 1.5, positive expectancy over time, and all of that jazz. So yeah. All right, we're making a move above GEX4. Thank you. We have smashed through those offers at 66.80. So now the next question is, do we sustain? However, I am... Shay says I used to live in Chelsea. Yep, I'm just over the bridge. So if you know Albert Bridge, you cross it, and I'm literally like maybe 10 minutes walk from there. So yeah, smack that in the middle of London with 8 dogs. That's not going to work. So we've been kind of aiming to move for a while, and it's finally, hopefully, if not, obviously, house sales can fall through, but it looks like we're sort of making our way. We'll see. But, if it does happen, it's probably happening end of March, first couple of weeks of April. We'll see. Yeah. That's it, guys and girls. Thank you for hanging with me. Let me throw you some links. So the first one is going to be Eurex, to beg Topstep for Eurex, as we have been doing for a while. We're going to put Topstep Discord in chat while my Cavalier is just walking around and clicking with his nails. If I can ever drag this link, thank you. All right, so we have grown over 100,000 subscribers on Discord and over 150,000 on YouTube, which is absolutely amazing. Let's keep that going. You can find all of our coaches in the Discord channel as well. And if you need some quick help, there are ambassadors as well. If you're looking to come and join us, do a bit of live trading, share your story, whether you're at the beginning of your journey or on the big board or somewhere in between, it doesn't matter. If you want to come and hang, please fill out the casting call form and someone will get back to you. All right, I'm going to go. I'm going to bounce, leaving this crude oil trade. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing. I ain't touching it. So we can have a recap of that tomorrow when we're also going to have Coach Robert here. Until then, enjoy the rest of the broadcasts. I will see you again tomorrow. I'm Deeyana Angelo, Market Stalker D. This has been the London class on TopstepTV. Take care.